It's daybreak here on Arise News, and it's time for the press preview. The first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. Of course, we'll start with this day newspaper, our sister publication. Despite Akpanudoedehe'S optimistic statement, Buni, Bello reconsider positions. Just below this day logo there, Atiku, I didn't run against Obasanjo in 2003 to sustain zoning policy. Then we go to the masthead. Cash-strapped FG to utilize part of Eurobond domestic borrowing to finance fuel subsidy. That's for this day newspaper.
And the Nation's newspaper, leading with the opposition party, says confusion in PDP over plots to stop Atiku, Saraki, Tambuwal. Some riders clash over returnee defectors rocks National Caucus meeting, and the ex-vice president says 2023 poll is our last chance. More headlines on the Nation's newspaper. Akpanudoedehe APC convention plans on course. And just above the headline here, it says Nigeria fails to meet OPEC's 1.78 million barrels per day quota.
Moving on now to the Punch newspaper. Buni's men tighten hold on APC. Akpanudoedehe returns to office. Nigeria recorded 1.9 trillion naira foreign trade deficit in 2021. That's according to a report.
All right, let's look at what the Nigeria Tribune is saying. PDP may die if it loses 2023 polls. That's coming from Atiku. He's warning the party. He says he denied Tinubu a VP slot in ACN. That's the riders. Then Dopesi raises alarm over plot to deny returnee PDP members party ticket. And PDP governors wade into Obaseki Wike crisis. We talked about this yesterday. APC leadership tussle just down below that picture. Niger governor retreats. Akpanudoedehe resumes at party secretariat.
Some international papers this morning. Daily Mirror says war in Ukraine deals with another devil as Putin's atrocities fuel energy crisis. Prime Minister turns to brutal Saudi regime for help.
In the Independent, Zelensky, Ukraine must accept it won't join NATO.
All right, let's look at Daily Express. Hell on earth, but glimmer of hope for peace. Still talking about what Kenneth talked about there. President Zelensky is saying that Ukraine will not join NATO, something sounding like an olive branch to Russia to stop the war. We'll see how that goes.
And the Guardian UK, similar headline says Ukraine's NATO concession as airstrikes batter capital. Another headline here, after 6 years, hope that Iran will release Zachary Ratcliffe.
Let's turn to the I paper. Putin turns to Plan C. Kremlin is expected to change invasion tactics in the face of fierce Ukrainian resistance.
All right, that will be it for both the foreign papers and the Nigerian papers. I'm sure we have Emmanuel Bello there. Emmanuel, good morning. Glad to have you join us on Daybreak. Let's start with the Tribune. PDP may die if it loses 2023 polls. That's coming from Atiku. He's warning. I don't know what this is about, but what's your sense of this particular statement, what it has to do with the fact that the question of him being denied, Saraki and Tambuwal? What do you think?
Well, you know, it's almost as if attending a job interview. So you give all the reason why you should be the best person for the job. So it was before this all-powerful BOT of the party, and talking about the deep crisis of leadership that could rock or is rocking the party, and gave some view to what he thinks will happen to the party. And that was a very strong one, the way the Tribune put it, that look, PDP may die. But that's essentially what he said. He said, look, he doesn't know whether the PDP can survive another 8 years of opposition. And he's saying that, look, PDP is going to go into opposition if, for instance, it fails to respect his candidature on one hand, and of course, the zoning formula. This is because the story imagines shows that the southern stakeholders of the party are, up in arms and saying that PDP must zone power to the southern part of the country. Atiku now saying that, look, if you do that, PDP will die, and that he does not see how people will remain in opposition for another 8 years. He's lamenting that so strongly. And he's also showing his credentials. He's saying that he's the best man for the job. He said, if you look at what they did in the past, and he's showing records, he's showing history. He's saying that he's paid his dues already when it comes to the issue of zoning, and that because of zoning, he has refused several times, one time to run for the office. And then, of course, other times he actually chose running mates that reflect the zoning patterns of the PDP. So he said, look, anybody going against this, the reports we had was that there was a strong, opposition to his candidature, with strong voices saying that, look, it's even because people like Atiku and the rest and Tambuwal, Saraki are in the party. That's why the party lost elections and are in the position of opposition today. But Atiku making a very, very strong case for zoning, saying that, look, you have to, PDP has always respected zoning, and that the only zoning that he understands now is that, look, the North has to complete its remaining years. It's a very difficult position he's adjusting, because a lot of people think that, look, 8 years of power in the North, the mood of the nation is that, look, power should shift to the South. But then if you look at his calculations in those stories, saying that it doesn't add up, that the North has not really completed those number of years. The calculations is a very curious one. But that's one aspect of the zoning debate. While some are talking about zoning to the North or zoning to the South, there are other people too who think that, look, the country has paid its dues already when it comes to the issue of zoning, and that you should leave this thing to go to the right person or to the best. You have these debates everywhere, even in some states. In the state I come from, for instance, the southern part that was ruling the state for 8 years is still thinking of retaining the power. And they're saying that, look, every part has done this zoning, so power can start actually from where it ended the last time, which is in the south. So it's a long talk. There are people who are not fans of the zoning debate, whether it should zone to the north, or they're looking for just the right person. There are people who tell you that we have serious problems and we just need serious people to deal with it, and not about where the person is from. But when you say that, people will still point to the nature of our society, to the the nature of our country, the size and the disadvantages of all the parts, and saying that unless there's some form of arrangement, some form of zoning, some form of agreement by the stakeholders that, look, power should just swing to this part or to the other part, that some people will be left without power. Now Atiku making a very, very strong case, not just for the North, but for himself too.
Well, Emmanuel, from one confused opposition party like The Nation coined it to another confused party, the ruling APC, these days reporting that the party commences sale of farms ahead of the convention, which is next week, Saturday, March 26th, and the chairmanship form goes for 20 million naira. And now Akpanudoedehe'S says he's optimistic the plans for the convention is on course. And remember last week when Bello potentially took over as chairman of the caretaker committee, he said the same thing. He was very optimistic. It seemed like he was making a lot of progress. I don't know what's going on with the APC. There's a lot of back and forth with who's taking over, who's planning the committee, what days what's happening, Emmanuel?
Well, Nkechi, you can see an effort by the APC to get its act together, just as we're seeing those same kind of crisis rocking the PDP. Of course, PDP is done with convention. They now have a national chairman. I think the crisis they are facing is what probably APC is going to face later on, because it needs to get the convention off the ground. You are right. Yesterday, the national secretary tries to give the impression that everything is sorted out. But this day report is saying that, well, maybe the APC is not really out of the wood yet. The story clearly stating that those positions are still contentious, and that, like the headline put it so strongly, Bello and Buni considering a no victor, no vanquish kind of position in the matter, just to get over with it. And you're right, it seems as if all the stakeholders just get towards, they want to get this behind them and just get the convention underway. That seems to be the biggest thing, and it's just next week, like you're saying. And those forms are already on sale. The list form is of 5 million. But in Kechi, if you are thinking of running, the party itself is saying that, look, it's giving a 50% concession to female aspirants who want to run for any of the offices. The list from there is 5 million, 20 million, monies that I'm sure Kenneth can use very well for other things. But those sales are on, and the party, especially Ganduje, who went to the Eagle Square himself, inspecting the place, so excited, saying that, look, all is set, we're going to have a convention after all, and these issues will be thrown to the back burner. Between today and, of course, their meeting tomorrow, we have to stay on the story and see what progress APC is making, especially even around, again, still the contentious issue of who is going to actually lead the party to the convention. It seems as if those are the issues that will be discussed tomorrow, and so we must put our eyes on it. But if you leave it to both the National Secretary and people like Ganduje, they think that, look, convention is going to happen, despite those court cases and even those crises of leadership that we're still reporting on. Ganduje going to even, almost on a daily basis, going to Eagle Square, inspecting the grounds and saying this is going to happen.
Emmanuel, let's take a step away from the politics. With worsening power supply, rising price of diesel, OPS foresees tough economic environment. That's the organized private sector. Of course, we listened to a report earlier about the power generating companies, aka Gencos. They say Nigeria will remain in darkness. How much longer should we cope with the darkness? It's been days on end. Every other day the light goes off.
How long should we stay? Honestly, that's the $1 million question, Kenneth. If you look at the crisis of darkness, most of us actually now just depend on it. The economy itself is on generator. But I won't be shocked if the Minister of Power himself is on that. So that's the kind of crisis that you're talking about, and those organized private sectors are really weighing on it and saying that, look, we can't even do businesses anymore. A country cannot be bigger while our politicians or the political class are looking at issues of leadership and most people are concerned about their daily lives, the issue of power. And a country can be bigger than the energy it's generating. If you want to know with the progress a country is making, just look at the electricity. It doesn't get better than that. So, and we have countries around us, even what we call smaller countries, are really having this. But again, the forces of darkness, like I said yesterday, I involved in this, and I was close to the process of the power sector, and I understand very clearly some of the problems. So Gencos are having their issues, and then the discos too are talking about their problems, but in between all of that, the darkness persists. And it's problematic, and this is the one that concerns almost everybody. Someone yesterday saying that what kind of situations is talking about how long we can cope. A situation where you have no lights, you have no fuel, the universities are closed, you can't fly, all sort of crisis, and it's almost as if no one is anywhere listening to anybody. So it's a deep one, and right now for most people the problem of power generation, especially for even small businesses, not just the organized private sector, the big ones, the barbing salons, everyone. People faced with all sort of energy crisis, and it's a big, huge problem. And only God knows how long we can cope. I think every Nigerian should be given a certificate of endurance at the end of all of this.
Let's turn to the international scene. Putin turns to what he calls Plan C. He wants to go the way of mass destruction because Ukraine is really offering a tough resistance. And then Zelensky coming out to say that Ukrainians must accept the fact that they can't join NATO, sounding like an olive branch. With that and Russia turning to Plan C, I was thinking that maybe this could soften the waters. Yeah,
with what Zelensky is saying, this should be able to soften the position of Putin. But turning to Plan C is another thing that is curious in this whole, terrible development in those parts of the world, and it's just terrible. But what Zelensky is saying might offer a glimmer. One paper reporting that there's still hope. This is the nearest or the closest this war has seen any kind of glimmer of hope so far. And so, yes, you call it an olive branch. Looks like that, saying that, look, we're not joining NATO and that Ukraine should accept it. The truth is that no side is actually winning in this whole thing. Russia is losing men, and Ukraine, of course, is going through one of its most hellish periods. So nobody wins in a war. That's just what is happening here. You know, you don't have winners, you don't have losers. Everyone loses at the end of the day. And so any part or any side that is actually making some concession, some kind of, buying into some kind of peace process must be commended for such action, because the rest of the world just want to see an end to this.
Well said, Emmanuel. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.